us here when he comes back in April. Is that when he's coming back?
Yeah, beginning of April. He goes just 2 months, January and March.
And if he doesn't, if we have, the thought was to have somebody, we really were talking about having somebody from industry as well. Yeah, Kevin, you're coming from industry, but you're on the school side. Not that you can't think both ways, right?
Right.
But we also talked about having somebody from the industry side, the factory side, or on the real estate side. And when we talked on the real estate side, you won't find a retired realtor because they're always ready for that deal.
Always the next thing.
And it was really difficult for the conflict of interest on the real estate side of things. So Bill came to us that way. So that's enough there. We do have a quorum. We
Yes,
confirm that.
Yep.
We do have minutes for January,
Yes.
and we do not have February's minutes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there any questions or discussions on January's minutes?
They probably haven't had a chance to look because they didn't get emailed. So
I've read through them. I'd make a motion to approve them.
We have a second? You're not able to, right?
I don't think so.
I guess I'll second them.
Kiri's going to second.
I did watch online.
We don't have a discussion. All in favor of the two that proposed it? We will go ahead and pass those minutes on and continue on to old business. Which I'm not sure exactly, where you guys want to, anything we left open. We have, everything's old business at this point. So where do you want to?
yeah, I put the two topics that I was hoping to kind of tackle tonight on new business, but everything does flow a little bit under old. So those of you that were able to watch, you know that we kind of went through the map last week and tried to determine. So what Crystal's got pulled up here is our existing area, and you can look on this way too, you guys. I don't know which is better for me but the existing area for our TIF is kind of in that bluish gray color. The red areas are a part of the existing TIF. We have talked about removing those. The reason being is the long one where the arrow is right now is Sunlight Community Church, who doesn't pay taxes. So there wouldn't be any benefit to that. This one toward the bottom, the red area, is the mobile home park currently, where there is agreements that it stays that way. There's some discussion that may not be happening. So I'm not exactly sure how we want to move forward. I need to dig into that a little bit more, but that's why we were going to remove that. And then the area to the east a little bit still on that south side of the road was because that's all that swampy area. So we just felt like there was no reason to keep that as part of our existing TIF. So what the area that is to the west.
Is there any development here?
It's a mobile home park, a large mobile home
There's
park.
no room for future development there. It's filled the site. If that's what your question is.
Prior to the establishment of the TIF.
Well, there was work that was done there in relation to.
Initially with the Innovation Park, I think that it was thought that we didn't know what was going to happen with that. And
The
then
only thing I would say is let's double check with the assessor that you're collecting revenue off of it. Because if you're collecting money, there's no reason to get rid of it. You don't have to spend money.
Yeah, let's confirm that because it's all residential.
But if it's non-owner occupied.
It's not owner occupied, so it could be.
Collect it, depending on when it was established. So
with that conversation too, I will also tell you that I spoke with Kelly Johnson at the county and Kim Anderson, auditor and assessor. We will have to talk to them on the taxing and what the tax codes are and get all their information. I haven't brought them in yet because we wanted to say, this is it. We wanted you guys to determine this is exactly the area that we're looking at for sure. And our agreements and just have all of that in place before we bring them to the table. So we'll meet with them at some point. But so along with this section of this, on the other side of Love's to the west are properties that are owned by Don Wise. Don is getting ready to rezone those to highway commercial. So we grouped that in last month with just kind of a random discussion. Do we think that makes sense? Do we think that it's worth bringing into the TIF?
Is that still the property that would have to connect to the lines that like
Yes.
that that's paid for?
Yes.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. The availability fees were really, really high. So I don't know if what you guys think about that, if we want to include that, I don't know.
You have those wetlands on still. I should look at what you're saying, confirm. We delineated some of it, but maybe,
Yeah, so and it's not a wetlands map, oh, wrong button. It is just a map, a USGS map that shows little green tufts of grass if it's a wetland. So let me pull it up. This national USGS. Let me get over here, maybe. But this mouse is not stellar.
This is why I gave you the mouse, because I do it on my computer and I'm like, ah.
So if you can kind of see these little green tufts, that says, I'm a wetland.
those I'm sure, those are on top of a hill. Those, the only I'd have to pull up the wetland mapper, but I think the only wetlands were right here.
Okay,
But I could be
And
wrong. We could turn on the mapper and look, I guess, but
we can bring in that layer. It's just this, we haven't fully built out this map yet.
no, that's
But
fine.
that's certainly something we can pull in and it'll show
It
us.
would be
that.
something to consider.
Yeah,
So,
see how these guys are, all these little green blobs up here?
yeah,
That's telling me that's a wetlands.
yep. Yep, we should confirm that. And Don would have that. You could ask for that delineation paper and see how much was delineated,
Okay.
because it is a good question. And
What this looks like, if they could do it along,
that's where that was almost parceled off, or maybe it was, I don't remember where we landed on that project, but there was talk about using that corner. That's why they were delineated.
Yeah.
For
it
those
seems
that-
like, this would, if it's buildable, this would be a nice kind of bookend on this side and take advantage of pulling all those utilities over. I know they'll have to pay fees to access it, but they're there.
It's just, so we talked about that, reiterate, but it's just water. It's not sewer. The city took the sewer over, the Love's paid for the water. Is that correct?
So there is an availability fee to connect in because Love's, yes, pulled that water. So it's a water availability fee, and they have it structured in a way that, depending on the use of the property, determines the amount that you have to pay, and it gets extremely expensive. So we have had somebody look at, for instance, like a truck wash there or something. And hi. And so, mark at 340.
Aren't you target?
I did with a red, I should have had my red pen. And so the cost to tap into that was
But it's not the sewer side.
not the sewer side.
It's just water, right?
Yes.
Are there any avenues for, say, a business wants to come in, they have this availability fee that makes it a little iffy for them? Is there any sort of assistance or avenue to help with that cost?
Is it public?
No, it's private. So Love's owns it, and that's where that comes in. So
Unless
that has
they
not
dedicate it.
been brought up yet. Now,
Can we-
it has an expiration date,
But
but
it
I
would have
don't
been
know what
required
that
to be
is.
put in as, was it required to be installed to public standards? Could it be something that the city could purchase back?
I would have
Could
to,
funds be used for that potentially, if that was a possibility,
I think it depends on how it was installed.
right?
If it was installed to city standards, if city inspected it, if city's willing to take it, you could either do it through a dedication and then it becomes, I think we'd have to look and see to say, what funding source was used for them and if that triggered any issue with the city taking it. Sometimes if it's not bid properly, you may have, problems with it because of your procurement requirements. So we'd have to talk to engineering. I don't think it's out of the question.
it was, and again, it depended on the use. So it wasn't as expensive for something, it may not be as expensive for something like a medical office building as it is for something that has to do
Like a competitive
with the
test.
Loves.
Competitors.
Yes, yes, exactly. Or just something that has to do with that. So it was,
Or something that would
it
benefit
was on
their
a
business.
scale.
Like a
Yeah.
hotel or something, maybe they'd be all jazzed about it.
Yeah, so it's just up in the air on that, but So I don't know what you guys, I mean, we can look at that. What was the second thing? You asked me to talk about the mobile home park, if it's generating anything, and then what was the other one?
Just now, we were just.
Wetlands?
No.
Oh,
the other one.
yes, if Don has
Don has
the
that paperwork. If he
delineation.
doesn't, I
Okay,
can get it,
okay.
I think.
The mobile home park, because it's a non-owner residence, does that fall under that multifamily part?
So the only thing exempt from tax increment financing, general economic development, not residential ones, but is single family owner occupied primary residence. So even if it's a single family home rental, it's taxed at 2%. So generally speaking, this is me practicing law without a license since we don't have an attorney, but generally, and we'll confirm this with your assessor and your auditor, is that anything taxed with a 1% homestead is exempt from TIF. Everything else should qualify because it's all commercial and industrial. So it doesn't matter to the
So-
taxing agency.
Hold on. You said something about rented, but that could be a second home, not rented. Is that right?
Yep. Anything that doesn't have the homestead exemption.
Anything that doesn't have the homestead exemption.
And John and Kevin, I have that behind you taped on the wall. If you want a close look at the map, just because that was the only place I could see to tape it, just FYI, to show the green area is what we talked about, which is what is up here above.
Was TJ Maxx in or out?
You want to go through from this way all the way up?
Yeah, we'll get there. Well, yeah. So then the existing area is that grayish blue, removing potential areas that we want to remove, swamp area on the south side of US 20, possibly the mobile home park, and then where Sunlight Community Church, that big one at the top. So those are the ones that we're going to remove, and then adding on, starting.
So just FYI, the red represents about 109 acres.
It does.
So again, I think the other properties are pretty much vacant. The only ones I would worry about potentially losing any increment would be that mobile home park.
Some might have a parcel in between where the church buildings.
Yeah. So
It's two different, one's Sunlight, one's
Oh, wait,
Gateway.
I'm sorry. Yep, I'm thinking Gateway.
Yeah,
Never
I did
mind.
that earlier. I don't know, Retha, if we want to do Donnie's residential property, that he will turn residential or not. I don't know. Because this here is all commercial. But this here will, maybe you have to, I don't know. Some of that's commercial and
do you
some of
have
it's
to
not.
have it connecting in any, I mean, do we have to continue with the connection specific, like you do an annexation or something? Does it
Yeah,
have to be?
but just like this, just like you're only taking the right of way here,
Oh, that's
you can
true.
take just
Okay.
take the right of way through here.
But he has prepped some of that for commercial, so it probably comes over to here. And he'll have to do that himself, but that's a conversation when he comes in, you might have that conversation with him. Because it's still rolling and that Blake is there, they won't do anything but residential back there. What he's told me is he's just gonna fish it.
Yeah, that's what he's.
So, I don't know, something to think about,
Okay.
but you can keep going. That's just an area.
And honestly,
Does it hurt to have it? or
it doesn't hurt to have
Okay.
it, because all you're gonna do is, so when they finally divide it and create taxing parcels, you'll only collect the revenue on the parcels that actually generate revenue. So this will still be in the TIF and it's there, and that base assessed value is there. But it's only, I assume they're gonna have to do some sort of a subdivision to separate the residential and the commercial. And at that point, they'll be issued another tax ID number. And then that's the way they'll actually, so that's why we do a big legal description of the outside boundary. But then we also have to identify all the parcels within that area. And that's really how the county folks know what's getting taxed and what's not getting taxed, what's in the TIF and what's not in the TIF. But as parcels are subdivided, that's why we don't just use, so long story. If you could just select all the parcels and say, our TIF is all these parcels.
Uh-huh.
City of Goshen did that, and now they're really upset that they did it that way. Because as soon as parcels are subdivided,
Now you
Your
don't have
map's
that
wrong.
parcel anymore.
That parcel doesn't exist. So if
you're
you
doing an area
subdivided a
instead of
parcel, created a new parcel number that wasn't in your initial TIF, now you've got that's literally within the boundaries of your TIF, but the parcel's not in anymore. And it just causes all kinds of trouble. So we're kind of doing belt and suspenders. We're going to list all the current parcel numbers as well as a boundary, and those together should help the county keep track and make sure they're giving you as much money as you're supposed to get.
Okay.
So one quick question.
Is it an and or an or?
We'll do an and. The statute doesn't really tell you. It says you have to have a map and a boundary. You can establish that boundary by the parcels. What I'm telling you is that best practices is don't do that because especially if you anticipate
Parcels change.
subdividing,
Yeah.
because parcel numbers change.
Yeah,
So it's a
absolutely.
physical area is what we're
Multiple
doing.
times. So what's on the south side of that, then that red is that swamp area existing that we just don't think is ever gonna get anything. So that's why that's getting removed. And then you start at,
Okay, hold on. Before we move on, this is just a
Yes, go
hypothetical. If Donnie ends up making some of that residential, hypothetically, if we did residential TIF in the future, can they piggyback off of each other? Or would we have to do a whole different residential TIF?
You would actually have to do a carve out for that residential TIF. You can't be in both.
Okay.
But you wouldn't want, I mean, unless it's super high density, you wouldn't want to mess with a residential TIF.
Okay. It's just a hypothetical. so-
yeah, that's a good question. And then to the north right here, that Westwood Drive area, so that's where Vans is, Gay's Liquor Store. On the north side of Westwood Drive, so this whole area is zoned C2, like a high commercial area. There are a couple vacant lots. I don't know that they're ever gonna get developed, so we didn't throw those in. If you guys want to do something with that, Vans is doing some remodeling right now. I don't know if anything could ever happen with Baker's Acres property to improve that or not. So that's kind of up to you guys. We didn't include it, but
So all of this kind of under this parcel line right here, all of this is zoned commercial?
No, this would not be.
I don't think that is
That's where the.
ag.
For the Legion.
Legion
Is that
is.
the Legion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what that would be zoned, but.
The other beacon is pulled up on this one. If you wanna and zoom in, just, yeah. And then over to the left is Angola zoning under the planning toward the bottom. Yep. You're doing so good.
It is so hard. This mouse is crazy.
Well, and yeah. So right, kind
It
of back to the west a little bit, right? You guys, yes, right
All
there.
right, there's the lake.
It is.
So yeah, so this is R1.
No, it's
But behind it
Behind
is
us,
just,
yeah.
You gotta, the lot behind that.
okay.
But if it's, what did you say it was?
So around,
So it's probably taxes.
around Westwood is C2, which really only has a couple vacant, other than Baker's Acres, which I would love to get that cleaned up and done something, but I don't know what we can do. The only other thing, but we're taking in the right of way, so I guess it doesn't matter, is that the mayor's been getting calls of people wanting sidewalk down West Maumee too. Again, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because it got brought up, but
We could do that though without doing this.
yeah, because we've got the right of way.
Well, but the other thing to remember, you can only do it if you're collecting money.
Yeah.
So you actually have to have revenue being generated. The other thing I'll say is, and we can kind of do, if we can get some tax records, they'll provide us the, like the sequential, so we can look and say, okay, yes, this parcel's developed, but if there's improvements made to it, and the fact of the matter is that generally speaking, real estate will increase in property taxes. The base assessed value is set. So even just normal, I mean, you're not going to make $1 million off of it. But if you have some of this and you think it might get redeveloped and the assessed value increases, it doesn't matter where the increase comes from, whether it's from bare ground to a building. Obviously, you get way more for that scenario. But if these things are remodeled and their assessed value goes up, you still collect that increment.
So what's the
So-
disadvantage of doing it?
The only real disadvantage of, in my opinion, of not taking in as much property as you think you might have use for is political. Sometimes cities get a little bit wonky about, hey, that's too much in a TIF. And so just to let you know,
You can't use by the rest of the city.
but you still
Yeah,
get the, you
but we
still get
were-
the base. It's just the increment they're not getting.
You can't use the increment by the rest of it. So if everything was going up, then the cities,
But what we saw through that, I know that we're chart, but what we see through that chart is long-term, the city ends up with more money though.
Mhm.
Right? If I read that correctly, that's how that read, which is, I have to think through that again, but they, maybe you can explain it better, but the last binder we had showed that over a 10-year time period or something like that, which blew my mind. Took me a little bit, still don't fully comprehend that. But am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, so the whole preface of the TIF, the whole thought process is that we're making improvements to improve the property value. You get to take that improvement, that improved value over 20 years, but it's still improved. Just the day your TIF goes away, the value doesn't go away. So the city overall, the day the TIF ends, is in a better position than it is today, long-term.
I have to look at that.
but the city might have improved it over time regardless of the TIF.
That's correct, but they looked at the dollars. I wish I had that in front of me. I don't know if you remember seeing that or not, but maybe you can explain.
Which was it in?
But you
The
understand what I'm saying? I still didn't fully grasp
one
the
that
concept
Jason
behind it.
similar, January.
It was in the binder. It was in our binder.
Oh, it was in our.
Yeah, I don't have it with it. Anyways, we can, but that's a good point, because I couldn't.
Yeah.
They show dollar for dollar.
The thought is like, so the argument against it is like, let's say someone coming in and does development without a TIF, right? Suddenly that value boosts up. Property tax levy stays the same. That means everybody's tax rate goes down. Right? And it goes down across the city.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because you
Yes.
can't, so that's the difference between the
if you
TIF and the
TIF it,
regular.
Then their tax rate doesn't go down. And the extra tax income from that goes into the TIF and you get to spend it on the TIF for the benefit of the
To
TIF.
benefit
I see
that
what you're saying.
area, yes.
So
Because
it's,
the city doesn't really get to collect any more taxes. The levy's set. So it's not like you're taking that assessment, that extra tax just wouldn't be there. Everybody's tax would go down.
Yeah.
But
with the TIF, then everybody's tax rate does not go down.
until
That's
20
where
years
that extra
from now.
money is.
Yeah.
That makes sense now. I follow what you're saying. That's where that extra that they show.
But that money is used to better the community, which I will just throw out as well, is that in the economic development world, conversations are they say they want lower taxes, but people don't want to live where there's low taxes because they don't have good amenities. So the amenities are paid for through taxes. And if you move somewhere that just has very low taxes, chances are you don't have yard waste pickup and you don't have your potholes filled and you don't have all these extra things that are done through taxes. So I think it just plays off of each other on how that looks. I also am kind of like, do we tip areas that if we don't see development or we don't think that might need our TIF money to develop, do we go ahead and TIF them? I don't know that it hurts or it doesn't. I don't know if it makes a difference, but that's my thought. If we're like, I mean, chances are Vans buys that other lot and just puts more parking because they don't have enough, is that going to be worth it to us? I don't know. So those are some areas that we just have to determine.
There's also some benefits of not having it tipped. So when Vans comes to us and says, hey, I want to put this parking lot in, help me spend it, we can easily say, no.
But you
It's
can
not
still
in the,
say
TIF.
that.
You still can, but you're like.
Say we don't make improvements on parking
You know, I mean, there's that side of it as well.
And even if it is in the TIF, we can say it's not in our, that type, parking lots are not in our plan.
But it comes back to that, what's it feel like and
You
look like?
can't do it anyways.
So, perfect. Okay, so that
So
area.
think about that. That I think
Okay.
is someplace, and again, it's mainly because kind of like spot zoning, you don't want to do one individual parcel.
Right.
In here, you have to have some, and so
Yes.
it's totally up to you, but.
So these two lots, Eric, I can let you talk about that.
So what was the part that you said you wish you could do something with? You wish you see?
Oh, that's Mr. Meats.
Acres,
Yeah.
which is in that Westwood Drive area
The
that I
fact
was.
is, if you want to give them incentive to do redevelopment, you want them to be in the town.
But so it's true on new development, in their case, there's probably not a lot that falls under what we can do as a TIF that will help them, motivate them to do something. If it was, hey, we don't have infrastructure to us, or we have a whole bunch of people coming that they can't get here because they don't have sidewalks, whatever, we probably don't have the tools in our toolbox to motivate them to do something with their existing
Even with the
property.
TIF, we don't have anything they want.
I don't know. That's what
Yeah, because
it's kind of just,
we're not gonna improve
there's not a
the
lot we can
building
do.
or, yeah, that's true. That
That's-
is true. I know. I look at it and go, oh, I'd love to do something.
we'd be
but-
better off using some kind of tax incentive on an abatement, some sort or other in that
Something
case.
else to help them
Which the
versus,
city has access to.
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. So then we wouldn't do that.
yes.
They're kind of
Yeah, you're
counterintuitive
right.
a little bit.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Okay, so as we move down, we
These two
included
here were
those, yeah.
purchased at, Deller sold those at an auction, and I actually happen to know both the guys that came in and bought this. They're from LaGrange County, so I called them, and they are open, this is some pretty information, right? They're open to anybody who wants to come in and develop something there. They don't have a plan for it. Their thought was, we'll develop something at some point. So my thinking is, yeah, that's a prime candidate of somebody you put something
We
to.
do
So when
have
you
a
have that
wetlands layer on
30,000
the
square foot
speaking
building you
map
want to
if
do.
you want to look at that.
Where's that location exactly?
This is right next to the Legion. You can see it probably easier on this one. You might make more sense. It's this property right here,
Environmental.
these two,
Is that,
kind of next to, almost back to Julian. It goes up against Julian's and that back there. So, and I can, yeah,
And they're already zoned commercial, right? My
it is a great location, and I will share this in this room as we were trying to
We are
motivate
in a
developers.
public on YouTube,
Yeah,
so.
as we're trying to do this as developers, talking to them, they have done development in their past. So they probably can do it at a cost that would be advantageous for our community. So that makes sense. So I think those are the type of people you want to be able to get in there.
This mouse is so hard to
I
drive.
struggled with it last time.
So that's why we included those. Again, you guys, if you're looking at something on this and you want to question or ask, we did this quickly last month because we're like, okay, we've got to get something down. We need to get this started. And so that's why we were doing this. If you see some areas that you think should be included or you don't think should be included, tell us because we haven't finalized this yet. You guys will vote on this. We do have an estimate. Can I share that of? Oh, yeah.
Let's share it afterwards in case we
Illegal, okay.
might start cutting stuff out or adding stuff. So let's
Okay.
see what we think before we use a dollar to make the decision. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't know that dollar amount. It could change our
It's
mind.
not that.
This
it's-
building, this property you're talking about, if you're looking at the Legion, is it to the
It's to
east or the west?
East.
To the east.
How many acres are there?
It looks like that's 9.4 or 9.2 and this one is.
about the same. 13.
It's about 20 acres or so.
Yeah, it's a nice,
And with that, there is sewer running through the back.
there's an easement that we have where
There's
sewer goes
something.
through, yeah. I'll have to pull that, but yeah, we do have an easement that. So that definitely though, in my mind, if somebody wanted to develop that and
That's textbook tip.
to me,
Is that
that's
right?
like,
It's
hey,
already
what,
owned by a developer that we may be able to incentivize.
yes, that we could say, what can we do? Can we help with the infrastructure? Can we help with
I mean,
the drive, whatever that looks like?
And they are the developer that has bought it with a purpose. I know you've struggled with that before. When a developer buys it with a purpose, you're like, are we really helping them? They were going to do it anyways. In this case, we're just going to sit on it until somebody comes to us.
Yeah,
So, perfect.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. You could do total mixed use. You can do some commercial up front, maybe some higher density and then go to
Yep.
low density as you go into that more wooded area. You could do a nice development.
Triangle will need it sooner or later.
Hey,
Might be 5, 10, 15 years.
Zip it.
Sooner or later, they'll need it.
Well, and we talked a little bit about that too, though. Like, if Triangle wants to come in and take any of these or buy some of these, we just see if we can keep them on the tax rolls for a certain
That's on that.
portion of time.
Yeah, you'll get to that here in a little bit.
yeah, and that's why that's why we're going literally just the right of way the rest of this way is because Trine has bought so many of those properties, it doesn't serve us to put it in the TIF. Because they'll be off our tax roll. So.
Can you pull this up on this one too? So we can get our bearings. Most of us know buildings for the location on the road, right?
Yeah. And you can remove zoning if it's easier to see too on that one, but. Okay, so we literally just came down the right of way in all these areas because of that specific, we could help with infrastructure. There's certain things we can do. If we take in the right of ways, there's not parcels because again, a lot of those are just single family residential. They've been there for a while or they're owned by Trine University, not a reason to pop them into our TIF district. So we came all the way down just in right of way until we hit, did we hit Darling or Superior, Eric?
We went down Superior
Okay.
because Darling was all going to be fraternities and we thought that the fraternities aren't paying those taxes. So there is a question here that I have, and Rita, I don't know if I talked to you about this or not, but I had made a phone call. I get this idea in my head and I talked to Amanda then. Maybe I talked to you or not, but we have discussed it here several times going down Maumee because the infrastructure down Maumee is not where it needs to be. And if you, I'll just use water, for example, if we go in, we're going to have to replace them at some point because of the lead stuff, but they're also not sized in a way that somebody could go into a building on Maumee, put a restaurant in because they don't have enough water for fire suppression over their hood, or you couldn't do multifamily because you don't have the fire suppression sprinkler system. So the discussion has always been, we have to go down Maumee to get all that infrastructure. There's been discussion about this area, and that's why it's green now with development, using development TIF money and working with a developer to develop this area on Gill Street. And that TIF dollars would be used for infrastructure is how that would work. That's the conversation.
We would make this a separate allocation area.
An
inside of
allocation,
it.
which we'll go through. So,
Apparently some of those are residential.
yeah, so let me go through this. So this map may not show what I'm going to tell you, but I talked to Amanda about this and then she thought we'd have to talk about it in more detail. But instead of taking that infrastructure and using that infrastructure on Maumee, we could potentially feed these buildings on Maumee through infrastructure that was paid for by the TIF down Gale Street. So I'm telling you that because then you would want this area in there, because if we do this infrastructure and can feed those buildings from the backside, it may be
So
more
we did
beneficial.
have a discussion,
or
Amanda and
not.
I, about this, yeah.
And maybe she's back on, I mean, I caught her off guard. Maybe you can't do that. I kind of pushed her like, hey, we do that. And she at the time thought that was a potential, obviously a lot more research to look at.
So if we look at, and I'm gonna just go over here with Beacon. So you are correct. Some of this is residential.
Because it's this block, and this block.
So let me
No,
finish that conversation. So the reason we would TIF these is because there's a development talking about doing something there. And if they
A
did something,
private developer,
if a private developer came in and did something, those would no longer be
yes.
owner occupied single dwelling units. They would be a combination of,
They would be multifamily with one
Multifamily.
building being mixed use.
Several of these already multifamily?
I think if you knew the truth, I would guess most of those are paying, those are not the 1%ers. Most of those are not doing homestead already at this point.
No, those are mostly rentals.
They're mostly rentals.
If not all of them.
So coming off of Superior, so one block over,
Which one's the funeral home?
Right here.
West Street.
Okay, so that's the old funeral home.
So these are all
That's
rentals. Everything on this side is,
that's Lake
The old
Shore
bakery.
Design, the old,
Hill Bakery.
yes. Now, again, this project depends on this private developer acquiring what he wants, what he needs to acquire in order to do what he wants to do. We have talked for years that bringing in more higher density into our downtown, you know, a lot of these are rentals right now. There's only, I think, 2 in those whole blocks that are actual single-family residential that this developer is looking at. So with this developer says, yes, this is what I'm planning to do. And I would love to access an allocation area to do my infrastructure. I'm going to put in all new infrastructure, which is going to benefit a lot of area. I'm going to do that, but I would like paid back for a portion of that with an allocation area. And That's what they're looking at. So
Do we all remember, we use that term, that's at the allocation area, do we follow what she's saying there? It's just the money can only be used in this area then,
yeah,
Only to
you
benefit.
can only
to benefit them.
a percent, we don't even have to do 100% of the allocation. A percentage of the allocation could go back to pay his.
Set up a percentage of the allocation, we go back to pay till this infrastructure is fully paid off. Once that infrastructure is fully paid off, that funding is available then. And they're looking at a set time period. We wouldn't base it off a time period, but for us to know what that projected time period would be.
Just out of curiosity. If we're putting, whether it's multifamily or mixed use or whatever, how much of that's gonna turn into parking lot? Because people are gonna have places to park if we're, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's behind them, I think. I have to look at, they've submitted kind of a preliminary. Now I can't remember. I'm sorry, Carrie, I'm drawing a blank because
But it will
my
not
brain went
be-
somewhere else.
It will not be public parking lot. So
It'll be
still
for the housing
It will still be
units.
taxed at the housing unit, so we don't have to
Okay.
worry about, I don't know if that's where you're going, but you won't miss out on tax dollars.
That's kind of what, yeah.
It will not.
Well, it would just be taxed at the parking lot as opposed to a development, so
Because if an
you
assessment,
miss the
something
opportunity
assessed
to
goes
build.
down, then you kind of
Right.
But
lose that.
So
probably
I
don't miss
think-
that opportunity because whoever does it's gonna have parking.
Unless they
It's a
do
percentage.
some podium parking and you want to really incentivize that as possible, but
Podium
podium
parking?
parking, so you put the parking lot and then you build the building on top of it.
Oh,
Oh.
yes.
It's expensive, but it's the only way you
Yeah,
get
I follow
the
it.
density that
You
you
do
need.
that in Angola?
Not to make the dollar.
So one building, two buildings would be just housing units. One building would have maybe some office, retail space underneath, something underneath. So it would be second floor residential only. So we're looking at some possibilities still. This is not final. It isn't anything. This developer has come to us. We have for years at the city discussed this section of Gale Street being kind of a conduit from the university to the park to the hospital. Like, this is one of those streets that it makes so much sense to do something with. If we're going to create some higher density, if we're going to have some more development, this is that street that makes sense to do that.
It's probably.
It's
important.
been in plans for years. It's just,
And, well,
this is as close as we've
as
got.
drawn over there, that street is not included?
Do we have the right of way?
The right of way will be included on that. So it's probably important to note too.
And I guess I would
That's
like,
not-
okay, so the potential opportunity and the incentive we could provide is clear for that section on the south. Why are we carving out the section in the middle?
That was the question I was asking.
Like, let's just include it.
That's the conversation. I think you're right on that.
Well, because we have two city parking lots there.
But
that are still
you
gonna be
going
public
to
parking lots.
continue to
But then
have
they'll
them
do-
as
Yeah, we
city parking
need-
You'll
the
have to,
parking
they'll be
lots.
required.
Yeah,
But it would get us that infrastructure to those buildings. To me, I think I'd go all in on me.
I gotta concur.
I agree. I
Okay,
think
but
you need to.
what is the harm of having the city parking lots?
Nothing.
Okay, they can't,
They're not
they're
gonna.
not gonna get developed, but everything around it could, and the stuff under it.
the infrastructure, yeah.
I think you go all the way. And I, before I forget this, I think it's important to note this. So there has been concern. Okay, you put this residential, you put this high density for housing in. What's it next to? It's next to the university. Is this just a university project that they're going to own in the end? So language would be written in this agreement that this stays on the tax roll. In the end, we don't care who owns it. It's got to stay on the tax roll for X amount throughout the duration. Because I don't think you want a developer to come in and do it. You pay all the infrastructure back and all of a sudden they give it back to the university. And what did you gain? The city gained out of it.
We got better infrastructure.
It's
but
good
we
for the
lost.
city overall, but it's not a good look for us saying you just paid for the university. Well, yeah, they brought kids to campus, they're spending money. We get that, but not everybody picks up on that. So I thought it's important to note that you would want to have some kind of something written in that language, but.
Can I ask a question about this project? I feel like this developer is ready to go in their mind. Is this project currently in the hands of the city?
No. We have had preliminary discussions, we've had drawings. Yeah, they're hoping to do that. They're I don't know that they're waiting on this, but I had said, hey, this is a possibility. We're looking at it. We're extending our TIF. Let's look at that. But we have not finalized. I mean, there's infrastructure discussions. What does this look like? What do we have there? How old is what we have now? What's the new going to look like? There's been lots and lots of discussions and meetings, but we have no applications, no public, nothing. As well as I think they're probably ready to go to start in discussions on what they would need to do to acquire the property, but you're right. He's ready to go. He wants to do this. This is,
I get that. That's why I
Yeah.
wondered if it was in the
Yeah.
city's hands or where it was at.
it's not yet.
I would say it's in the hands of both probably to come together and
If
figure
we're
it out.
going to do this allocation area, if we
And-
agree to do this, then it's,
And really,
yeah.
what's holding that up is probably some of us in this, all of us in this room, because in order for the city really to come to the table, they have to know what they can offer. And right now, they can't offer anything hardly without us making a decision in here. So is it waiting on the
So
city?
you
They're
guys
kind of
are
waiting on
saying-
us. They just don't know they are. Is that?
So we'd like to make that a solid green rectangle.
You want to even include the little city parking lot up to right there?
Yes.
You want to do that whole area?
Yeah.
Cliff,
You guys,
what's his name?
hold on, let me get a
Is it
highlighter so I can mark that. on the map.
Cliff, right?
Who's Cliff?
I've talked to him a few times and he
I don't know Cliff.
will,
He's ignoring me. Let me go get,
he owns this whole corner.
oh, Cliff Hetherington. Yes.
And I've
Sorry.
talked to him a few times and he's not a big fan of the city, just so we all know that.
Is that the empty building on the corner? It's almost
Yeah.
empty.
So if he thinks that we're
Well,
doing
maybe
this and the city's not getting any money out of it, that would be a good thing.
So you want to include this
He'd
whole
love to do something there, but he doesn't.
box here. I just need to give this to Nick. Okay, I'm marking
Heaven
this
forbid something help our city.
You know how those guys are.
that we are going to include this whole thing. Okay.
And they will like to hear that, correct?
Probably, yeah. Now, I'm only getting, in my perspective, they're only still getting this little allocation area, the allocation from that specific area where their specific.
Which is
Development
here, right?
is.
1, 2, 3, kind of 3 quadrants.
So it'll all
Yes.
be TIF, but there's the 3 quadrants for
Will be
elevation.
their allocation area,
Right.
what they get the money from to pay back their,
Yep.
yes, utility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I say something real fast? Because this is going around in my brain. So I'm working part-time for Lake Shore. Does that need to be disclosed in all these conversations? I don't even know.
I don't think so, because it's not us acquiring or
Right.
asking to acquire, so.
Just figured I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, it's just something, and I don't know that he started any conversations with
Right. I don't
anybody, but no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Putting them in a TIF is not a bad thing regardless.
Right.
But I don't know that this private developer has had any discussions, so
That's
it
fine.
is what it is, yeah,
Just wanted that up there.
absolutely, yeah. And then we talked about initially going ahead and going all the way to South Wayne because we want to come up. So if we're going to include that whole area, if you guys want to do that, I'm totally fine with that. So we decided to come up. Now we know that whole area where the park and the courthouse, all of that is county property right now. Eric thought about the top area there.
I suggested this only because this won't be there forever.
The moose?
The moose won't be there forever.
Okay.
I don't know that it will be. And I thought, why not grab that at the time? I may be wrong on that. I don't know.
So again, that's just something we put out there. If
Doesn't
you
have
guys
to.
agree, disagree, we don't have to include it.
I don't have a strong opinion one or the other, but as we're looking downtown, what areas would there be potential for development? That's an area that would be potential for development. And what would the money go towards? Whoever does something there will require sidewalks and some more work. It'll be some rework there.
Is there a reason you didn't take the whole block?
That's residential there on the corner. And
I think if I had to guess, some of that could end up in ways where we got to watch. We got Trine at one edge, we got Cameron at the other end. I could see that turning into Cameron, and then we don't have any TIF dollars coming towards us. That's the thought behind it. So then that was
The old.
Could we have language once
I don't know
again?
that it is. I don't know if Craig will do anything with it. You know what I mean? But I have no insight, but they're buying right, they have Watkins office and next door. Where does it make the most sense?
Is that something though that could have language similar if close to trying, like if it gets
That-
acquired? I don't know.
That one, no.
Okay.
Because there's
Because
no,
there's no, in this case, the tried language wouldn't show up until until it transferred to them. And it would be with the developer who already owned the property. In this case, Cameron would end up purchasing this, and then at that point, you can't do the
Okay,
language.
I got you.
It would have to happen on the front end. It's a little different.
yeah. And can I ask you really quick?
This
Well,
parcel includes this area.
Yeah, it's like their own pocket park.
So.
And the same owner
this
owns
is
that
all
little
one
pocket.
parcel.
Yes. So we would
Taking in
probably.
this.
The parking lot
I think
goes
you need to take
To that
this.
side.
It goes both ways. They
It
got
goes both, yeah, that whole thing is
That's
one
it.
parcel.
Parcel over here.
And we don't have to even bring that into the discussion.
Wait, say that again, John?
Let's just slide.
Oh, can we move the other map? Crystal, sorry.
Oh, this mouse has gone berserk.
Yeah, that parking lot's just its parcel by itself, right?
I can't remember.
I think so.
Keep going.
I really am not.
You're almost a little
I
further.
know, it's
There.
just so hard.
Right there.
The mouse, I know, it's hard maneuvering those.
This is all one big piece.
Yeah, but then the parking lot behind it is just a parking lot parcel.
Yeah,
And that's
the
part of,
parking, so click on that real quick.
about to the
This
north.
one?
Right there.
The moose is on a strange.
So yeah, it's its own parcel. The moose is on, and then down below it, if you click that next parcel right there, that's all one, and then the moose is, yeah, 3, 4 different ones.
The park's an old gas station.
It is?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Bye, Mark. Yeah, I did not know that.
So I guess my only thought is probably, is there any benefit of taking the parking lot, which gives you no money, and leaving the building? I mean, it's still all by the same owner and still part of a development project.
And maybe somebody has proposed that we don't even look at it. We don't do that area.
And
I don't know.
what Eric is saying, if you go to the east a little bit further, all of this, except the Klein, which is gonna be
Always Clyde.
always Klein probably, has now been purchased by the hospital. And then not that, or maybe that one, but then you give another couple over this Klein Museum, and then the hospital's right there to the south. So,
So at this point, I guess, if this is all owned by the same person, what's the benefit of bringing it in? I get the moose. I'm not just,
And I don't even know that any of it is worth it.
I don't know that we even need to bring any of that in. I don't know that it makes sense.
It's on the map for discussion only, so.
He was
somebody-
just thinking like, if it was to be developed something different, what could we benefit, could our TIP district benefit them, the developer somehow? Again, I don't know that we need to include it at all,
I don't know if
so.
the tax base would go up that much anyways. Was the moose taxed?
should be.
So it would go up 100%.
If, like, let's say that it, okay, so
That's
Kevin
kinda
said that
makes
corner's
no
an old gas station, that's a little parking or pocket park right now. If somebody wanted to develop that, could the TIF money pay for like a phase 1 or phase 2 to get the ground checked?
Plans and studies.
So if that was ever being sold and somebody wanted to develop, we could say, yes, we could help with that portion of your development. We could get your phase 1 and your phase 2. I don't know that that's worth it. I'm just throwing
Let's just
out.
ask, like, what are your guys, might as well, we'll get hung up on
Yeah.
one property. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you want to add it or not add it? The advantage of adding it is it's zero tax per dollar base. The moose would be now. So whatever you do is 100%
Mhm.
increment.
I mean, we're
Potential-
making the assumption that
Potential
there-
risk is that we get nothing for it because Cameron buys it.
Or it just never, or it always stays.
There is a cost to doing it too, right? There'll be a cost associated with us putting it into TIF, right? As
Yeah,
far as the
legal
legal
descriptions.
description stuff. So there is some risk, but it's minimal.
So otherwise, we just cut it off on Mommy.
Yeah.
We just go straight north and
Do we take that first block of East Maumee or no? Not even that.
I guess what's the incremental cost? Is it $100 or is it?
We've talked a lot about
$10,000?
Maumee streets, like water lines and stuff on east side being really bad, or the west side. Is the east okay? Like,
It's better.
They
okay,
had, about 8 years ago, they had redid That side,
Yeah, some of that was redone.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent, but I know they went down.
The water's much, I couldn't answer, but it does get
We have a
Better.
good water capacity that way, yeah.
too much water capacity. Isn't
And
it?
so you get further
It's
out,
just
you
like
start
the
having
building, the
increase.
first block of West Maumee, I mean, they literally, all of those, and this is what I said to Eric, I couldn't even, as economic development, I couldn't court a restaurant to go in there because I couldn't even say,
Give them what they-
hey, this makes sense, because if they, that
Capacity.
whole lot, that whole block shares one water line.
Right.
I mean, it's just not.
And you don't think
feasible.
there's any opportunities for any, and this mouse has gone berserk. So this kind of area here that's cut out, there's no,
This will not be, there's
I
no
would
dollars
say
here
no.
because this one's been done.
okay,
This one, good luck. And this one here, yes, 100%. Within the next 5 years, that one money will be put into that. Because
I mean, if, yeah, if
somebody probably won't be, the person that,
if she sells, if she
it'll go somewhere. At some point, it'll
Yeah.
change hands within the next several years.
possibly.
Not several, few.
So, yeah, there could be something there, and that needs a lot of work for sure. So we could,
And does Phil own that property there?
no, he sold it land contract to, Dave Piatek. So.
What all
and now-
has to be done to put the moose into a TIF? What kind of paperwork?
Legal
so
description.
you just, so that, the reason I asked the question about what's going on the west side of, I can't read that.
Maumee Street.
Martha?
Oh, Martha,
Yes,
yeah.
Martha.
Because if you're gonna grab the moose, you're gonna have to go in the right of way anyways. You're gonna have to grab that right of way to go up there and get the moose. So do you wanna take what's on, you wanna get the moose and the stuff on the west side of Martha? You wanna just grab parts of it? There's, I mean,
So
it's, just to let you know, the cost associated with the legal description is based on the number of parcels. So the real quick look that my surveyor did said, the stuff in the green, let's say about $9,000. There's probably 400 or 500 parcels in that area, depending on if the right-of-way is right-of-way or if the right-of-way is part of a parcel. So what I'm saying is that if you want to add an extra 100 parcels, really it's the cost of deeds and someone to look at the deeds and include it in the legal description. Don't let that be,
Yeah,
it's
because this is now
incrementally
7 out of 400
so-
parcels.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, John asked the cost, so I was
Yeah.
just thinking,
Yeah, no, I think it's,
Yeah, it is a-
it's
it doesn't sound like it's a
literally
lot.
limited.
But you gotta get into the surveys and all kinds of stuff like that, then you're talking, you
Yeah.
could get into some real dollars.
Yeah, and so just to let you know, the legal description for a TIF district is a boundary. So we're not doing individual surveys of each property. The reason we pull all the deeds is because the deeds provide the legal description. They'll come out and they'll do some points, so you'll see, and that's just so that they can take this written document and attach it to a physical spot. But what's going to be described in your legal description, like you have now, is the boundary. So whatever that boundary looks like. So moving it
So
over
then
3
this-
parcels or 8 parcels is really relatively minor.
Okay.
And again, he
I was
didn't,
thinking every time you add a corner to the boundary, that's got to be surveyed.
no, and again, there'll be very limited physical survey. It's all based on legal descriptions. So we have to pull all the deeds. That's where the time comes in and
And you
pulling.
use the boundaries in those legal descriptions to define the boundary of the TIF.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
what are
it's
you saying,
minor.
John? You're saying minor, you're saying just include that whole west quadrant?
Yeah, it seems minor.
So just know that that
You may-
corner of
so you
East
may end up
Gilmore and Martha
You
is
may end
city
up getting nothing
property.
for it,
Let's do
but it
it.
costs
So
nothing.
all the way over to Washington. Get my roads right? You're saying go all the way over to Washington, even grab
Like
the whole,
include the bank, whole bank?
the old key bank there, okay, where Adam's at the kicks.
Yeah, Washington.
Can't use names, what's the address? The bank,
Metropolitan.
The old Key Bank.
Trilogies.
all the way to Washington. Is that what you're saying? Am I hearing you right? Go all the way to here and just get that whole block.
Okay, so get the whole block.
Write John's name next to it. He's the one that decided first.
And so grab this. We're going.
So you're gonna
We
take
got
it
somebody
all the
money.
way
It's
to
John's
the
corner.
end street and take the rest of that block.
Yep.
Okay,
Perfect. Simple. Let's keep heading north. We'll
Okay,
never be on.
so head north. With that great mouse.
I'm rolling the right direction. It's just not going the right direction.
So again, through here, we're just taking in right of way, all the way north. We talked initially about trying to hit something on Woolert Street that we could connect, possibly use some money for some TIF funds that could benefit Woolert Street sidewalks, or maybe eventually Center Lakes, something like that. And so there is a parcel to the north that you'll see right here that is going to get us, if we take it in, it's going to get us, it's a vacant parcel right now. And so we talked about doing that. It's on Weatherhead. It's zoned industrial. No, it could be zoned commercial. I have to look at that. Either way, taking that and then that old, what was that called?
So Weatherhead stuff.
Yeah, but no, toward Woolert. What's that? Dupay or this one right here.
Oh, the old aluminum plant?
Yes. Taking that in because we think
No,
something.
not the Dana Weatherhead Street, Dana Weatherhead. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The old
but-
aluminum casting plant there, it's.
Oh, they're not there anymore?
Yeah, they're by the old Union Hall.
Yeah, so that's why we talked about taking that in. Do you guys have any thoughts, concerns, anything? So those parcels, one has been remediated. It was univertical. Dana Weatherhead, yeah, years ago. And then the one to the west was whatever Kevin said it was.
Does Dana still own the property north?
Okay, so that is
That
C1
one
on the
there.
corner, so that is
Who owns that
commercial.
property?
This one?
Yeah, Dana, I think,
What
yeah.
What is that weird shading?
Like a wetland, I don't know what, wetlands are turned on, so it's possibly, the thing with wetlands is IDEM has changed the way those can get delineated and what that looks like. It used to be, you just don't touch it at all. And now
Not
it's
wellheads,
different.
is it?
No, it's
There are some wellhead areas in here, yes. But, and then yeah,
But that's one reason to have this property in there too, is because
Yeah.
if somebody, that's why Universal's here in town. If you ever listen to that story, that's why they're here, is because the city jumped in and helped them with that cleanup. And we can potentially do that with this property too. So. Any questions on that one? Does that make sense to everybody? It's only 24.
and then we can keep going north if you guys don't have any. If you think we need to take something in as we're heading, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just keep heading north.
This is torture. You need a new mouse.
I don't know what it's doing. I need to stay.
It's just not.
It might be you're so far away from where we're, I don't know where you're.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Do you want,
Oh, that could be. It's just, it like doesn't want to go where I'm pointing. Part of it.
Question while we're heading north.
yes.
So if Angola ever moves further east along 100 or further west along 100, will that mostly be residential sort of thing, like where, like the Weber property and things like that?
Where like the Sheets property?
Yeah.
Right there. Possibly, yeah. So we have had a few people look at that, developing residential.
I just didn't know if it would be worth it to kind of have an avenue that way for the future, or if that's just a future conversation.
Down like Harcourt and
Yeah.
100.
So my thought was, we went down Woolert so we can catch Woolert if we need to.
Right.
If we go that way, we're down North Wade, we can go right down right away of 100 to pick that up, because
Okay.
we don't know what that area is,
Right.
probably more than likely residential.
So do you think we need to go right
So
away
I don't
right
think-
now?
I don't think there's any reason to, because you don't know what it's gonna be. As soon as you know somebody's talking about it and serious about it, that's when we go down that right away and make that area. Am I saying that correctly? Because then you more than likely will allocate that too, because now you're talking to a specific developer.
Right. We'll just have to do this whole
So-
process again to add to the.
Yeah, but if you do it now, you're gonna have the you might have the wrong spot. There is a
That's true.
potential in
So we
one of
had a
those.
potential on Sheets not long ago, developer looking at it, residential, and they just pulled out last week. So we were gonna annex.
Not yet.
You can't tiff it. You can't tiff anything
It's in
outside
the-
of your
it's in
jurisdiction.
Sheets is not, Sheets property is not in the city. I have to annex that if somebody's going to develop.
But that other property
Right.
on the corner.
Next phase.
Behind,
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. On Woolert Street Extended.
that would be one that we, so here's another conversation that I'll continue on with. This is probably easier to point than it is to explain where it's at. Let's go to, just keep going. Where are we at here? Keep
No,
going.
you need to go back. Are you
We just
talking
passed
about
there.
Woolert Street Extended? You're
Yeah,
down.
did I go past Willard?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, right here. There is talk about, so scroll down just a little bit farther north, sorry. So there was this road got put in with no utilities. So we connected Woolert, but there's no utilities. So there's property, and you're gonna correct me if I say anything wrong, there's property along here. We've all seen signs for property for sale along here, like
Yeah,
why is it
forever.
still, there's no utilities. So there is talk now, this corner lot has utilities. But there is talk about potentially developing some of this and maybe even this in the future. But one of the biggest holdups always is, how do we get utilities to them? So it is a question, I'm glad you brought it up. There is a question whether we go down and pick this up or not, the right of way. That's
pick up
my,
Woolert Street
Is this
Extended.
road only half in the city limits right there?
Uh-huh. Oh, well,
It's probably
We
just
don't talk
drawn,
about that.
Okay, I
it's
just.
just drawn straight.
The overlay, that's what the overlay is.
we might go like
Okay.
this and go up.
All right.
But that is a good point you bring up.
But I
because
will
there's
remember, so
Which
if you
was-
don't have property, you're not making any money. So if you want to make improvements to Woolard, you better grab the properties that are vacant on either side of it so that you have something to pay for it with. Because the next step, once we get it all selected, we'll go through and we'll grab the current assessed value of all the properties so that you have the current assessed value of your TIF is X. Then you have to start thinking about, okay, what improvements could happen? Because that's the only way you're gonna make money. So if you stay in the right of way, it's because you don't think there's development potential on either side of the right of way.
So in there, you'd want to take the land with it.
If you think there's development potential that's being held up because there's no utilities, then you want to make sure you grab the parcel along with the right of way.
so,
But that parcel goes all the way through, right?
yeah, so Carrie is correct in saying the Heritage Club is in city limits. Our discussion is annexing that C1 parcel right behind Heritage Club and the Sheets property. But if we were going to go down the right of way of Woolert Street Extended, we could. I don't know how much more development is going to happen there, but if we can help somebody with something,
It increases the
bad.
property value.
So
it
there's no
increases the property
utilities right
value.
there,
There's
you said?
nothing. They have to pull from the intersection of Harcourt Road and
Or
Woolert
Hoosier Drive.
Street.
Is it Hoosier? What's the one?
Hoosier's
you-
on
And Hoosier the other way. Yes, that's what somebody else is looking at. So Hoosier and the reason being is back when that road was built, it was literally just constructed for a bypass to the industrial area. That's what it was for. Hindsight 2020, we should have probably done something. So at this point, all of those things that are developed along North Wayne or 127 are connected off of North Wayne. So if you're going to go back behind, you would have to get an easement to go to North Wayne or pull your own utilities from Harcourt or Hoosier Drive. So could we be a help? Yeah, I've had a few people look and it's always the same. Like Eric said, just FYI, you're either going to need to get an easement and run them all the way to North Wayne or you're going to have to, do your own thing. Now, again, can the city do something with their own tax abatements or whatever, depending on what's going there? Yeah, possibly. Is it going to help with infrastructure? No. So I don't know what makes the most sense. We don't want to do tax abatements and TIF. So I don't know what that looks like. You guys can do that if you want. don't have to. I'm not gonna be mad either way.
So most of these properties that, at least to the east,
Most of them.
yeah, like that one's bringing its utilities through there. I don't know where
That one's with
this
the VFW.
veterinary clinic is getting theirs.
But see, what they're doing though, is these property owners are looking at, they're not using that the west half of the property, so they'll split that off and sell that west half, and then they won't have the utilities anymore.
And these
That
are big
makes sense.
properties. How many acres is that one?
7.5. Is he watching this?
How many acres is that one?
This.
No, the one that you were just clicked on.
Oh.
7.5.
7.5.
I mean, that's a big
It's just
parcel.
used there.
I mean, there's your development opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've got 5 acres. You could subdivide that off and we've got 5 acres that could be developed that somebody
I think you add those in there. I would say that, that was my opinion, we add those.
through the right of way down that Wooler Street extended, or what are you thinking?
I don't
You need the
know.
properties if you're gonna
You need
never
the
have any money.
properties. So you either have to go from North Wayne or you go down to Wooler Street Extended. Either way, you get those properties. And it might, I don't know which
It's
one.
down,
Are
yeah.
we talking about starting at Harcourt?
You can
Are you
either
talking
go
about-
down Hardcore and do it, or you can start right here and just grab, it's just these two properties.
Would be
This one.
Yeah, that one,
right
this one,
here.
I think you're better off taking both sides.
this one.
You need to put sidewalks or something in.
So if we went down the right of way down.
The next one's a
Harcourt-
church, so it doesn't make sense. And the other one has power coming, you can get power. That one you could do as well, I guess, but
So you're saying take it down the right of way down Harcourt to Harcourt Extended,
well, John.
I mean Wooler Street Extended,
you
and
can-
then do the properties on Wooler Street Extended that can be developed?
It's gonna look the same way, whether you're saying the same thing, whether you go down Hardcourt or you don't have to go down Hardcourt if you could, or you could just start here and get the properties, because you're gonna go all the way
Yep.
through.
That's the way I'm drawing it. It's going,
You don't have to get
you're
hard.
Here's
gonna
a
take
red.
the green and extend it all the way over.
Use the red one so I can see it. Okay.
Now, what
But
about
not
the
church.
I? The I property is pretty built out. The one that's industrial there up at the top corner at the. I'm looking at it right there, but where Hoosier Drive makes the curve.
Go up.
Are you saying that one?
No, the one that's the blue, the light blue on the
Right above Hoosier
southwest
Drive.
corner. Yeah,
Oh,
all
that's,
that. What about that stuff?
That's all
that's gonna,
developed. Yeah, I don't think,
they've not too long ago looked at developing that.
oh my gosh.
I mean, they did, I talked to them. Just saying.
Okay.
So that's all pretty established. So we're just going to go Hoosier Drive back out to,
Right.
Be done.
we're gonna go back out at that point at Hoosier Court Drive to connect again? Is that Hoosier Court Drive? Yeah, that's where we're coming back out.
There is a parcel right there to the right of where you are, John.
The issue is, this is the,
That's the church.
So
So we don't have to include that one. And then the backside of that
Angle
could,
canvas,
That's the Angola canvas lot.
this lot's for sale. This one's available.
Yes, I was
This
just
one,
gonna
there's
say
no
that.
plan for, they own, but there's no plan for at this point that I know of.
not
Unless you've
that I
heard
know of
differently.
either. I've made some phone calls.
So, and this one here is no longer part of that. They split that off. Those used to be the one piece.
Yes.
Across the road.
Yes.
And the canvas, the canopy by that, who owns that now?
I know who's looking at it, but I don't,
Is Armstrong own it now?
who?
Who owns that property?
It's Jeff Smith.
Oh, Wenzel bought it.
Did they? Oh, it doesn't show it on this one.
North of Hoosier.
Okay.
Yes. So that was the
You don't
discussion a while
buy-
ago.
That without planning on doing something at some point.
They are planning, yes.
So, okay.
So grab it.
All right, color it red. I'll just.
There's gonna be money, grab it.
So are we coming back to Hoosier
Well,
then and
I'm
getting
gonna,
on
I'm
North
gonna,
Wayne?
I'm gonna stop for a second. We need to think, okay?
take a breath.
You grab that, let's say Wenzel's gonna expand. They're gonna come after a tax abatement. They're not gonna want anything with this TIF because TIF isn't gonna help them on that expansion. So now we kind of pigeonhole ourselves, what makes the most sense? Because the city's gonna be in a bad spot where they're like, oh, we don't want to tax abate this because we're gonna collect all this income from it. And that's not what I want to do because Wenzel's gonna want this tax abatement. I'm sure they will.
Do you do abatements or phase-ins?
Abatements.
So,
So it's 100% for whatever the term is.
correct, typically. So I don't think,
That.
I don't think,
What's your term usually on an industrial? Is that
I
what
mean,
we're
they're
talking?
all coming up like 10 years. I
5 to
don't
10,
know,
I
5
think
to
is
10.
usually
So
what
you
it
do
is.
100% for 5 or 10
It
years.
depends.
Not always.
Phase.
Sometimes we phase.
Some are
Sometimes
phased.
we phase, yeah.
Because the other thing to remember is that even if you have to play that game in the beginning where you give them a phase in or you give them an abatement, you're still gonna have 10 years to
Phases
collect the
out
money.
after that, I
You're
guess.
still gonna have 10 years to collect money based on $0 now or whatever that the land value is in $1 million industrial building. I don't know what's going in there.
Kevin, you're a token industry guy.
Oh, no.
From that side, that's how, I mean, from that, working with these people, these groups like this before, they're looking at how much money can we save on the capital on the front end? Like, where's this tax abatement coming from? And I don't know that TIF is gonna help them in this situation.
But you're not helping
Well, it
them.
still saves
You're
us-
collecting money from them.
Right,
But we're not
but
incentivizing them to do anything, and that's what the abatement
what
does.
can we do to
Abatement's
help?
an
Well, you
incentive.
can do both.
I guess my question if he's expanding that area, is that there's gonna be storage?
I don't have any idea. I haven't talked to them. I don't know what they're doing.
I've talked to them, but I can't remember for sure. But, we'll do abatements on real property.
Yeah.
We'll do, it just depends if they're adding equipment. Sometimes they could look at that if,
Because you're doing real property, you're doing equipment, you're doing everything on those abatements. But I guess you're right. You're only collecting for 50% of the term instead of 100% of the term.
Right, and it's more than you have
That's a better
now.
way to look at it, I guess.
I just don't like to abate inside a TIF, but
Well, but you should always remember, if you can't help them with TIF, then get out of the way.
Yeah.
And let
That's what
somebody
I'm
else.
saying. in
right,
this
we
case,
want
we
them to
can't help
grow. We
them.
want them to
You
be
can't
able
help
to
them, so don't
expand.
stand in their way of getting some
That's what I'm
money.
asking, yeah.
So yes, in general, you don't want to do tax abatements within a TIF district, but if you cannot assist them and you don't have to be you don't have to be an obstacle. If the city would have given them an abatement, if it wasn't a TIF area, then the city should give an abatement.
Okay.
If it's in a TIF area, because in the grand scheme of the 20
Yeah.
years or the 25 years of this process, you're still going to benefit from that.
Well-
It'll be delayed, but you're still going to benefit from it.
right.
We'll really benefit from it too, because it's a fairground.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It starts with that
my
background
goal would be to
cost.
help them expand, to get them what they need to do. So I'm okay with that. If you guys want to include that and bring it back down Hoosier,
Let's just grab it.
connect to North Wayne, let's just grab
It's
it.
Christmas, we're grabbing everything. Let's go shopping spree. Let's do
Oh
it.
my gosh.
All right, headed
All right.
north.
Okay, so on to the north.
We're gonna have this town booming. We're gonna make a US news.
So that is the Serenova development. That is all, I think, commercial now. He rezoned that whole section, has the front lots platted. The other lots are platted too large, but so that's why we included that. Nobody has asked for anything. They've got one lot that has a potential development on it, lot 1. But it's possible that we have to relocate the trail a little bit and take it off of North Wayne to
It's
come
still
down.
cul-de-sac. It doesn't go through, right? It's cul-de-sac.
There is a roundabout, but I think it's gonna go through.
So what'll happen is
See where that Ruby
where's Ruby
Tuesday,
Tuesday's at?
down to the
Right
left,
here.
yes.
We're right here. So this road, can you see? This road would come up through. There is a roundabout in there though, right? So this would come up through. And some of the TIF could be used and nobody's asked for it, but we know that sidewalk, we know that trail goes out here. A good place for TIF, we could help. Hey, you need to relocate the trail. Well, let's
They are.
relocate it.
Move it to the east.
Let's relocate it here. I mean, that would be,
Connect to the backside of.
Yeah, where
that-
it
you ride
connects.
bike, right? You're right.
Currently.
It's nice not to ride along the road.
And curves around and then goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be an ideal.
So that's a
positioning.
way we possibly could help them. They haven't asked for anything. They've got a new road going in, a new service road. There's a lot happening. They've approved plat. That's the only thing so far that has been done. But again, bringing that in and being able to possibly do something there would be, I think, a benefit.
I'll say this. I was hesitant on this here at first, but we control what we do with the TIF dollars, right? I don't want to do, personally, me speaking, don't want to do new road infrastructure and then watch something set empty. But if you do a bike trail, they have to do the rest of the work. We're not doing the bike trail until the road's in anyways at that point. So it's kind of one of those, we're both in the game. We don't end up at 69 where we have a road and nothing happens. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's how I had to get my head wrapped around it before. I was like, what are we doing here?
So, and then heading north, go ahead.
Makes North Wayne Street safer then.
Absolutely. Because there will be no, the way this is set up, from what I understand, is there won't be any more curb cuts on North Wayne. Those curb cuts for these properties will all be to the east, access road.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So then these outlots around the Meyer is what we talked about. So the TJ Maxx outlot is in that, as well as a couple other ones that are available to develop. They have not platted these. So that discussion is, they're there, they're for sale. They would have to be subdivided. Well, maybe not. The one has been Three Rivers, Trace Rios plat right here has been subdivided, so it's not showing on the map yet, but
That's another one of those areas we need to have conversations with the county on where they are in that process. And the ultimate layout of that will probably be based more on where they have existing parcels.
yeah, so like that one that you're clicked on, John, has already been approved to be subdivided. So I don't know if they've just not recorded it or what, but, and then the TJ Maxx plat is subdivided and then there, that outlot to the north. So we talked about including those again,
now you can ask your question, John, that I stopped you on when you originally asked.
whatever you guys
I don't,
think.
I didn't know the answer.
If you look further to the north, Menards has platted these outlots to be developed that are marked. Again, we do not have to include them, though that was strictly, I think Crystal had made a comment at one of the meetings. For tiffing, you develop areas that you know are going to be for income, for incremental finance for us to build our pot. And then you also are areas that we know we can help do something. So those were strictly areas that possibly padding our pot a little bit. You know, it wasn't, nobody has purchased them. They're just platted to be developed. I don't know what we would help with. So we can remove them, we can keep them. I have no,
You know, if the trail goes through, if there's streetscape improvements, you know, there's nothing wrong with just collecting increment here to do your work in downtown. That's why it's connected.
and the only
So you're saying keep them.
I say keep them.
here's the only thing I would say on that is like where the TJ Maxx is, that whole road, I mean, those are private roads. Those are Meyer roads, so those aren't even ours. And that's why, John, you had brought it up, yeah.
Yeah.
One time, but so I don't know. That's why I had said that, because it's not our private drives.
Yeah, I mean, our goal with the TIF as a tool is to incentivize development, right? And my question with TJ Maxx was, they're already doing development. That's gonna go onto the books, that's gonna result in improved property, that's gonna be an increase in the assessed value of the city. And for a fixed levy, that's gonna decrease everyone's rates. Right? So that benefit is already coming in and it's. So TIF tool doesn't do you any good there. It's like, you're not incentivizing anything
Maybe not that specific parcel.
unless you just want to grab the money to help the rest of the TIF district and not the city in general.
Well, the city in general, but not the specific development.
Because you could do streetscape, you could do intersection improvements that
Yes,
ultimately
Wendell
would
Jacob
benefit
is
the whole
ours,
city.
right?
Because you have the revenue there
The city
to,
could decide to do that anyway.
but they probably wouldn't have the
They
money.
could. There is conversation of potential, let's just say arbitrary sidewalk going down North Wayne. The city's not gonna come off and do that unless there's grant funding or something else involved. And the TIF could come in and help incentivize a little bit of that as well. Does that help? That probably helps TJ Maxx, but it may not get to them for 20 years, but it may get to Walmart before them, and it gets people that much closer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's where
So if
it
we're-
doesn't directly, their initial, it doesn't help, but maybe it helps quality of life for their employees. It's how gray do you want to make it? That's what.
Exactly. And the thought is if you are gaining that increment financing when those lots are developed, whether they ask for incentives from us or not, if you're gaining that, what can those funds be used for elsewhere to benefit the whole community, to benefit that whole area? So that's why we looked at that is, hey, we know that NDOT's coming through with a major project on North Wayne Street in 2027. We know that. We know that we are looking at sidewalks, how far we can extend them as part of this project, as part of this relocation of a water line, as part of this whole thing. What does that look like and how far can we get with that? We already have a trail there. I'm not, I know that. Do people use it? No. I mean, half the time they use it for biking and walking, but the people that are walking down North
They
Wayne,
don't commute on it.
they don't commute on that trail for some reason. Do we need the sidewalks? Yeah, we've talked about that for years. So again, this may not be for the redevelopment purpose of giving them incentives to develop, but it may be if we're getting those funds, we can use it to benefit our community. And that's my thought on it, but I will digress to whatever your guys' thoughts are, because I don't think you're wrong either, John, on those, your point being made. I think that that's still valid. So we can
Quality of
include
life
them or
improvements
not.
are an incentive. It may not be a direct incentive to an individual, but they're an incentive to your community. And the businesses ultimately then benefit from a higher quality of life. So yes,
Yeah.
that's why TIF can only be used for local public improvements or direct developer arrangements that create local public improvements. The whole
Right.
concept is these are tax dollars and the community is supposed to benefit from them. That's why you aren't doing and going and fixing someone's facades. You're not going in and renovating someone's private building. You're doing public improvements, which in fact are helping the total community.
I personally think if you get incremental income from them, even though it's small, I don't know why you wouldn't leave them in it. Even though it's small.
Yeah.
Why would it be small? Because if we capture it this year, it's gonna.
I think you're saying even if it's small, it doesn't, in this case, it might be big, but if it's small, you'd do it either way. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah, this one would be big. So, any other thoughts on areas? that we
This ends
missed?
it. This is it right here.
Well, we'll get it drawn up and we'll get you some areas, because that's the other thing to think about, we can do a couple things with this latest and greatest version is get you a little more information about what the total assessed value is at this point versus what the whole city is. We can show you the two and show you that it's, 1/10 of the current assessed value of the city, just to help people feel comfortable with the area. Because it looks big, but it's not that big. It's really honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of an area. So we can get you a little bit of background on that so you feel comfortable with the area. And then we can get you the number of parcels and we can kind of hone in on a cost for that legal description. And so we can provide all that information. We don't necessarily need to wait until the next meeting to do that.
Okay.
We can do that between now
If
and
we
the
put
next
it,
meeting.
if we are doing it, including the extra areas that we added and getting that, again, I've had conversations with Kelly Johnson, Kim Anderson. They know we're ready to meet. They know we're doing this. It's just, they were super busy with tax stuff. I don't want to bother them until we had an area that made sense to start getting the information. So that's where we're at with that.
Is the Saranova property, is that in city limits and is that in a TIF district?
The Saranova out north, it's what we've got it marked to include in a TIF. Now, there is a part of what he's purchased that's going to be residential that is not in the city limits and we did not TIF.
Can you zoom into this area?
Yes. So you're
So
right,
this is the
Mark.
commercial part. This here part is the part that we're not looking at doing because it does come up all the way through. Is that what?
Now on the northern industrial park, to the west of that.
Yeah,
We're coming up the Hoosier,
yes.
but no farther north than that, other than the property we discussed.
What's that other, what's the other corner? Where
That
it's-
one there was discussed on,
Oh, it's part of a bigger parcel.
We
Um,
didn't,
You're getting pretty close to city limits right there, aren't you?
are they still
Or
on?
does it go up to
It's-
Wendell Avenue?
city goes all the way to Wendell and it goes to the Humane Shelter.
We just do what we want. Yeah. Okay.
Read that, that's what I signed when we joined this. That's what
No.
Rita said.
I did not say that.
Here the city runs all the way to 16.
Now, I don't want to, we don't need to discuss this. We can if you want to, but pull back up, please, up to Menards area. There was discussion about this area as well.
So there are some vacant lots that can be developed. We have somebody that has purchased the old eclectic room. There is a lot in front of that that is vacant, or a portion of that eclectic room. I think it's two separate parcels that may get developed. Icer Drive is a private road. He does have those for sale. Pop Shelf went right there where you're at. That's NIPSCO. That's
They just
NIPSCO behind
Purchased
it.
right there during some more.
NIPSCO extended their purchase off of like right along North Wayne there. The power plant to the, right there is NIPSCO, and they purchased a lot behind them.
Oh.
Yeah, so it doesn't show it yet, but that's owned by NIPSCO. And then right across is what Pop Shelf bought, across Icer Drive. But he does have these other ones that he would like to develop and subdivide. But again, it's a private road. It's not a city street. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. The eclectic room and the lot in front of that has
Is it built with standards?
Ister, no. So at this point in time, the city has zero interest or motive to take on Ister Drive. Because it is not built to city standards, it is not something that we want to deal with at this time.
I thought I'm obviously wrong, but I thought city limits went out to like 200 where Wendy's was at, and it doesn't go any further than that.
Oh, no,
It's been annexed in, more of it has. It goes
We
all the
go
way
all the way to 300.
to the, see where the water tower is there on Zestos?
Yeah,
That would have to be in. It
okay.
Yeah.
probably happened at that time when that water tower went
This
in.
pink is city limits here, right?
Is that correct?
Yeah. I just remember back when we were doing all those PPP loans, we weren't allowed to go past 200.
You missed
Oh,
out.
really?
So-
That's what the city was telling us, but that's all right.
And the other bankers, they couldn't come the other direction.
Probably true.
Well, oh. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, it has to go all the way out to
And
the
it's
water.
not even, yeah, our ETJ goes up to 400, but our, yeah. Okay, so in time frame here, because you guys are already an hour and a half in, do we want to? Are you thinking you want to do something with eclectic room in that side or no?
Electric room. The question is, will it end up being a nonprofit of some sort, or there's no tax collected?
I mean, we just don't
Meaning a
really.
medical facility or something. of that
Anything,
nature.
I mean, if you listen to the word on the street, it's probably going to be a medical facility, but I don't know. I mean, you really don't know. What's the negative if you put it in a TIF?
I don't think there's any, but I'm,
Because if it,
I'm struggling to understand what the negative is. I don't see a lot.
And I think you mentioned this, the negative would be if we only have so much percentage and we're not even close. That's what you just got to say.
Yeah.
But the negative would be if you think you're ever going to reach that percentage, but we're so
and there's
far.
no set percentage. It's all perception. It's what politically.
At one time, we
you
were
can get
given a
past.
percentage. Remember that? Like only so much.
and that was with,
We just thought that.
I thought that was, so we were told that for like industrial or something, and I can't remember.
There's
But it was
nothing
like
in the
you can
state
only
statute
be-
that limits
Yes.
the amount
We're
of
asking
TIF
that
you can
last
have.
month.
Yes.
And I'd take that round and put it in there because it's not worth anything now and it might be worth something someday.
That's kind of my take too, but
Well, and I also, I don't know if there's a reason that the two outlots on the, just north of where the screen blob is.
Front of Menards.
Yeah, why those two on the north, Jeff, that one and
That one just got developed and that one could be, yeah. I mean, that's up, it's for sale and could be developed, so we could go all the way there. Yes.
Then the question is where do you stop? Because you take the whole green building, all those outlots there and everything and just
No.
do it. I mean, that's the question.
Yeah, I know.
That looks like it's retention. Those aren't really. I think you stop right where you are, right below that retention area, that.
Because there's talk that this could be this and this too.
So I think that, if you guys want to take eclectic room and the lot in front of it, I guess if we were to take anything off Icer Drive, the only incentive would be if we use TIF to improve that road and bring that into city infrastructure. Again, not in our plan.
That's
But-
the only benefit to that property owner. That's not the only benefit to the city. That's what Mark was kind of saying too, I think, because that's the only direct benefit to that owner. And the reality is, if you put that in this TIF, they're never gonna ask that. If they never come to us and ask that question, nobody knows that's in a TIF.
Right.
Oh, they will. They'll get their tax bill and they'll call you and ask you what their their TIF tax is. And then you have to explain that it's your regular TIF.
I get that, but it doesn't change that.
Tax, it's just separated now.
Yeah.
So. But anyways, no, I'm with you.
Yes.
I'm just saying that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
A lot
We'll
of
get-
those
yeah.
questions.
Carrie, what do you think?
Is there utilities in the road?
It's all
Icer
private.
Drive?
Everything
No,
is private.
it's all private.
What are your thoughts, Carrie?
So the utilities from Pop Shelf come straight off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's NIPSCO, so that's never gonna be.
I'm just wondering, like, if anyone would be asked, if they're on that private drive, what are they gonna ask of us as far as a road when, I don't know.
I mean, at this
think there's
point,
other-
we say you're on a private drive, it's yours to maintain. You know, you're at risk of
Doesn't
your
want it.
development, you have to figure out how you're gonna maintain that road, what you're gonna do, you gotta get utilities. So that's what we're telling them now.
Right.
Yes.
Which makes it less desirable to develop too, from
Yeah,
somebody coming to town.
absolutely.
Well, I gotta pay for all this too.
Yeah,
So yes, we
absolutely.
could come and help with that if it was in there.
Yes.
And that might be one of those opportunities where somebody comes and says, and then that's a reason to extend your TIF and do an allocation area for a project like that. That says, okay, you're gonna come in and put a couple $1 million in. And part of that will be establishing public right of way and public infrastructure. But let a development actually drive that inclusion.
We can allocate inside of a TIF later on, correct? So if it was TIF now, we could still do the same thing and allocate it later on.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm not saying we need
Yeah.
to, but I want to make sure I understood that.
So just really quick too, this is on, you guys can take that with you. This is the end of 2024 financial report there.
Yep.
So we are expecting that out of this dollar amount, not a lot of this, but I have got to allocate with council, according to our clerk treasurer, what we want to spend out of this. They don't govern our money out of redevelopment, but they do kind of approve that. We have to allocate that. So I'm about to allocate so I don't have to keep going to council every time for this expansion, like $100,000. I don't know. So
well, you have your spending plan, remember?
I know, which we put in like 500,000 for this all of this, because we have to hire a redevelopment attorney. We have to
I know,
hire
but
a redevelopment attorney to approve that. We have to do, our legal descriptions, pull the deeds, pay for somebody to do all of that stuff. So out of this money, I'm gonna allocate $100,000 or $200,000.
And then remember, you're gonna have your legal counsel
Yes.
Probably gonna wanna bring, Jason back in.
Yes,
So those are all
And
expenses.
if we don't spend that, it's no big deal, right?
right. It's just
Right.
allocated with council. So just know that I'm about to do that out of this money because I don't have it in my budget. So,
So what was any more discussion? Do we want to just leave this area off for now? That we kind of, we want to add it?
Yeah, it seems kind of wishy-washy.
That's off.
do we want to
But I
take
think
those
the- I
other
think
two
the lots in
Menards
front of
lots?
Menards would make
Okay.
sense.
Take the one in front of, there's one there.
There's two.
But one's
There's
developed.
two. One got developed just
Yeah, they got
this, yeah.
You take it anyways, I
But,
guess?
well, if this gets approved this year, then it's the assessed at the beginning of this year. So anything
Yeah.
above this year for next year would.
Yeah, it depends on what it was, and we can ask that
Let's
question.
just look at it.
If it was
take a vote.
assessed before
What was it
developed.
assessed on January 1? Because if it wasn't fully assessed yet, then you'll get a little.
Right.
Even if it was partially built.
Okay, and then give us an idea, maybe you did, and I missed the ballpark now, I held you off on it, but ballpark for something like this was,
So he just gave me a back of the envelope,
Yeah.
$9,000.
Okay.
So I'd say somewhere between 8 and 12, when we actually start looking at the number of parcels and that kind of stuff.
and what do we need to do
Um,
on this here?
So I think with time at this point, we may not, what we wanted to do was, this is the draft economic development plan. And I'm gonna let Crystal kind of talk about it really quickly.
So there's lots of yellow, which is gray on your version.
I meant
Did it not print?
to color and it just didn't print and it's
So-
probably my fault.
So this is pretty much the outline. So also remember that you got a couple, you can call it the extension of the 69 mommy, whatever whatever goofy name you gave it in the beginning. So it's the existing TIF is called I-96 in West Maumee Street Economic Development Area. It doesn't seem-
I-69.
Yeah, I-69, sorry.
Name?
It doesn't seem like a relevant name anymore, but you can continue to call it that.
We'll use chat, we'll come up with something.
So,
I'm not
you can
right
call
here.
it the I-96 and West Maumee,
I-69.
why am I calling it 96? I'm having dyslexia. I-69 and West Maumee Street Extended Economic, I mean, you don't have to come up with anything super jazzy. The only people who are ever gonna see this is the assessor and the auditor and the people when they look at their tax bills. And you're actually gonna get a tip number, so they're gonna see it's gonna be like 94 or whatever it is. So not a huge thing to worry about, but if you want to make the change, this is the time to make the change. And then there's several things. So if you remember when it was established, you went through a process. You did a declaratory resolution declaring we're saying this is an area in need of redevelopment. Then you go to the plan commission, then you go to council, then you come back and do your confirming resolution. This plan highlights some of the statutory requirements that are going to be duplicated in those resolutions. But again, for the plan, I always like to provide a little more information than a little less. It's telling you why you're making these. So the redevelopment commission has to make these findings. You're going to do that through resolutions. But I just wanted to make sure you and anybody else reading this understands that these are requirements. These are not, we think so. You are declaring, and then you are confirming that declaratory resolution saying, these are the facts. So that's what this is. The boundary, again, will provide Exhibit A, which will be a legal description and a drawing. The other thing on page 3, you'll see it's in bold and there's X's. So once we develop the area, then we have to figure out, okay, we've said we're going to do all this stuff. We have to put some dollar amounts against it. So that will be something that Retha and the utility department can talk through about, okay, what do we think we're going to do in the next couple of years? And then you actually have to put, so 12, 15, $20 million. And that's when you start thinking about, well, where are we going to get $15 million from over the next 20 years? That's where looking at the current assessed value and then thinking about what the future assessed value might be. So it has to have some relation to the world in general. You can't just say $1 billion, and because that's not going to be possible. So we do want to do that.
But you have to say something.
You have to, yes, this is a statutory requirement. So then there's just a whole bunch of things that you could use the money for, is what the next section is.
If you give an estimate, does that money have to be spent?
It's
So
just an estimate.
It's an estimate, but there's no accountability or consequences if the estimate's wrong.
No, it says, hey, we think we want to make these types of improvements and this is what that will cost. Well, if you don't collect the revenue, if nothing in your TIF ever develops and you don't get any money, then obviously you can't spend it. If you collect more than you want, it doesn't say you're limited to the $12 million
So
or
people will
whatever.
just say, if that doesn't come to fruition, people will just say,
You
you're
didn't,
really bad at predicting the future.
you didn't achieve your plan goal.
There's no ledger accounts where if you move it from, say, going towards streets to police or vice versa, there's no restrictions there.
And then, so this just kind of goes through, and this is probably more detailed. It doesn't have to be this detailed. But again, when you look at things like providing phase ones and phase twos, that comes under your planning. And it says, planning activities may include, but not limited to corridor studies, access management, beautification, master plans, site development plans, anything that could help a developer, non-concrete kind of
And if you guys
activities.
remember, our initial plan out by 69 right now for this existing TIF district literally lists 3 things that we can spend it on. Sewer lining, doing something on Hetzler, and a water tower. So this was purposely like, hey, what can we help a developer do? What can we add value to your property with? What can we help our community? What increases that value of our community in general, quality of life, quality of place? What does that look like? So this is very wide and broad for that purpose.
So again, if you look through this list, anything in the back of the mind, when you look at this, you go, okay, local public improvement. So we've got lots and lots of public things, utilities, infrastructure, all that fun stuff. And then about halfway down page 4, you see development incentives. Without this phrase, you cannot do those public-private partnerships. That's why it's listed here. It doesn't say you have to do them, but it allows you to do them if it comes up. Now, at this point in time, property acquisition, I think the last 2 sentences indicate that at this time, no individual properties have been identified for acquisition. If at a later date, the commission chooses to do that, you have to amend the plan to add an acquisition list to it. I think that was a decision that was kind of unanimous at this point. And then,
Mayor as well.
and then the last one is financing of the plan activities.
What is 36-14-7?
That is the Indiana code that manages your campus.
Nice bar.
Yeah. And so generally speaking, 36-714 is redevelopment, but you'll see in some of these items, there are other statutes referred to, and that's because that's right out of the statute. So specifically the job training grants, it's permitted under 36-714, which is redevelopment commission, and it also has to meet the requirements of the 36-725. If you would choose to do that as an activity. And again, probably more than you need, but I know the last thing you want to do is go have to hunt up what these statutes are. So I just like to put them in there and just say, here it is. You don't have to,
I
all you have to do
appreciate
is-
that.
You have to grab that code, stick it in Google, and it'll take you to where it needs to go.
So then we're looking to revise this and
Look at it. We can come up with names. If you guys see something, if everybody's pretty confident on this map, I'll have Nick shade it back in, do the same thing on that we had done, because we will need a final vote on that. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I want to get that shored up. I would love to get this shored up as well, because this is a major part of us moving forward. So,
And this will have to be reviewed, so
By an
if you're
attorney.
comfortable with the content, we can get it to the attorney to start reviewing, making sure I got the IC codes in the right order. And then that same person will use this to help start the resolution process, getting those resolutions drafted for not only the redevelopment commission, but the plan commission and the common council will all need resolutions drafted. And it's all supposed to be based on this content. This is what's setting the plan. This is what we're gonna do.
this is the plan.
This is the plan.
yeah. So, we
I have an
will,
electronic copy of it.
I tend to edit stuff.
We do have
She
one.
emailed
We do.
it.
I did email it. Did I email, was it a PDF?
Yeah, it's a PDF.
Okay.
I was able to download it to Google Doc.
Were you? Okay.
Okay.
I can send it as Word too, that's not a problem.
Whatever works. So I'll get that back out, but you do have it in your email if you want to just kind of go through it. I'm hoping our next meeting is
Yep.
April. Da-da-da. Sorry, takes me a while. 9th?
Second Tuesday or second Wednesday?
Yes. Yes, April 9th. I would love to be able to like, hey, let's make some changes, get these updated. Let's vote on this. Yes, we want to do this. I would also love to be able to, I think we worked through a lot of parts of the extension today. I would love to say, hey, let's remove this, add this, let's be done and move forward on that too. So we can speak to the auditor, the assessor, and get those conversations started.
My impression was we kind of settled on it, right?
Yeah, can we do that between now and the next meeting?
So I'm gonna recommend we have all our comments to you on this plan by March 26th, back to you.
Email to me? Yeah.
Okay, so you can have that draft for that
Okay.
April 9th meeting. And you can have to us this
I can
by,
email a PDF of this map.
so that we can get this back to you as well. So hopefully we can just say our
So do you
yays and nays
guys,
and go forward that meeting. Is everybody on?
so I think I have everything that we're gonna add. We've marked it on there.
Let's make those changes.
I think we can approve it
Yeah.
on the next meeting then without discussing. I mean, we can have this, it'll be open for
Are
discussion.
you okay waiting to the next meeting or you're asking?
I think we should try to meet with the assessor before so we can answer some of those questions specifically around the TJ Maxx.
So
So
We can answer those questions about how those parcels are laid out without that conversation.
can we have this in the next week or so? Because I'm a see, touch, feel kind of person. I'm gonna want to drive and just look around and just wrap my head around the rest of the map.
So what I can do is send a PDF
Yeah.
of the shaded area on the map. I can do that,
And we
yeah.
can just have comments on this with,
do you think
On
we
this,
can have that for a week before? Like, can we have that by next Wednesday? This updated version?
Yes, yeah, I'll check.
So
with
then we'll
Nick,
have a
yeah.
week, we have 2 weeks to look at the plan and a week to look at the other.
Mhm.
We email it back to you, then you have an answer within 2 weeks of this. Well, we won't vote until April,
And
of
we've got to
course. but-
schedule time with the assessor and auditor.
I think
as
we
well.
need to have specifically to make that final decision about that TJ Maxx area, we've got to get some input from them on there.
Perfect,
I'd like to make sure we can do that before the next meeting.
great.
Yeah.
I feel
Okay.
like we were very
No, we'll get
productive.
appointments
Took a while,
scheduled
but I
with
think we're
them.
productive. You guys are comfortable?
Feel like we're sitting in the grind.
I'm excited. Yeah, guys. Any questions regarding the allocation area, anything on Gale Street? I feel like this is a great project. I feel like it's feasible. If you guys have any questions on that, because that will have to be another like economic development agreement inside that we will create. And does this board have to approve that or
We
the?
can't
So there's.
Approve that until this is approved.
Yes, it's a two-step process.
Right,
If you're gonna
right.
provide a financial incentive, the redevelopment commission, so that redevelopment commission establishes the allocation area within, so it'll be an allocation area one within your economic development area to whatever, so there'll be a separate allocation area. That is a U project. Then after that time, it goes to your economic development
Yes,
commission.
that's what I was
because they're the
getting
only
at.
ones who can actually issue the financial incentive. They have to have a public hearing, they approve it, it comes back to you. Again, same people have to look at it again, council and the plan commission also have to say, hey, this is okay for you to do this allocation. So it's almost like a mini amendment, but it's because you're establishing something separate. But the key to that is that your development agreement should be attached to that sucker and it's providing all the details.
And we will have an
About how
attorney
that's gonna
have
do
that, yeah.
So question then, as we design our area, whatever, should we put the allocation area in it right away? Because we can go back and forth and negotiate, but really we have it's not in a TIF district. So I don't want to drag that out and say, we do this new district,
Right.
now we go back and we have to do allocation. but we could do an LOI or, or MOU of some sort saying,
But if the
hey,
development agreement is never fully realized, then you have a goofy, weird allocation area.
that's what I'm saying. But also if we,
It won't, it's not the end of the world, you're
should
still
we
getting
take
the
the
money.
allocation way later or not? You understand, I don't want it to drag out where we now we get the new TIF
We
district.
don't want to hold up the development.
Now we go back to allocation. We really should allocate that on the front end, but if we got an LOI from them, we could internally decide whether we want to do that or not.
I think that is going to be a good question so to make things even more complicated, if you use the Barnes and Thornburg guy, who's really expensive, but he's really great, he's also probably going to be able to help as your bond counsel. Because you're going to have bond counsel when that bond is issued, even though it's a developer-based bond, they're paying for it, you're reimbursing them. It's still considered, it's called a bond.
And I'll have to ask, we use Ice Miller for bond counsel right now.
Okay.
But I'll look at that.
I thought we weren't considering it. I have to go back through that. I was pretty certain that wouldn't be considered a bond the way we
It's-
talked about that in the past.
The language that's used that is used as a bond. It's a developer-based bond, meaning there is no local money going into it, but they establish, so it's terminology, they call it a bond.
Okay.
It's pretty much a letter of credit at a bank that the
That's what I
developer
thought,
sets up.
yeah.
But you still have to have a bond agreement that indicates how those funds can be used. And all that has to be negotiated as part of your agreement. So I don't see there's any logistical problem with doing the allocation. So you'll have allocation area number 1, which is everything but the area you're creating an allocation area to. You can do that all at once. The only snafu that might happen or inconvenience would be if that development never occurs. Now you've got this weird internal allocation area that you may never need.
We could amend that backwards out if we wanted to. But I'm sorry, I'm hung up on that. How is that considered a bond if they're paying on the front end?
It's just the term that's used. It's just.
It's like a loan.
It's referred to in the TIF world as a developer-based bond, meaning it's not a city-issued bond. It's just the term that's used.
Okay.
But no, it won't be a tax backup. There won't. So if the Redevelopment Commission were to issue a bond, then that would have a tax backup and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. This developer-based.
It's just language and it really isn't a bond. It's just language, really.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's just generally part of their line of credit.
Someone misunderstood the word bond and called it the wrong thing.
It
Maybe I
probably-
just misunderstand it. but
It was
it's
probably
weird.
some attorney that wanted to be called bond counsel.
Well, if anybody's tired of being here, they're allowed to.
Yeah, we can.
Just suggest it.
No, I just didn't.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Good. All in favor, we're good. Very
So
productive.
can we go back to the YouTube so we can end that? Who's got the mouse? Who's in charge? So if you click on that,
What am I driving here?
over on this screen. Yep.
Streaming YouTube.
And then you're gonna go down to end stream. And it's
Hi,
gonna pull
everybody.
up again. And say exit or end, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.